Hi, welcome to the Badaboom podcast. This is Troy,
This is Chris.
and welcome to the official DC podcast. Not really, this is still Badaboom podcast, but every other day it seems like there's something going on at DC, Warner Brothers, Discovery Plus that's like, we've got to talk about this. What is going on? What's the thought process? And I don't have a good idea of what the thought process is for the latest news of canceling Batgirl. Like, what are they thinking, man?
We're recording this after they've had their earnings call where they talk numbers, business, and talked about sort of what their idea of their brands are, especially when it comes to this merger and this acquisition of Warner Brothers and how things are gonna flow, where their ideas are. And one thing that David Zaslav, the CEO of the new company, has said is we value the DC brand. We're focusing on quality over quantity. And in terms of Batgirl, that was a question that was asked directly, which it's very rare when you hear those like fan-like questions in our earnings call. If anyone's ever listened to an earnings call, it's not one of those things where you want to be looking for superhero news for. So he was asked about it. Basically, what he said, and I'm paraphrasing, is if we don't believe in it, we're not going to release it. And that may be something. I think there's been some reports about the quality of it, but this is the same company that released Jonah Hex, Green Lantern, all these things. So I think the quality thing is out the window. It's more like this is a one-time opportunity to write off all of these production costs. This Scooby-Doo Haunt, they've cut a lot of programming across the networks that they acquired. That's all like investor speak. But what's crazy, and it kind of makes sense that Ezra Miller's the star of the Flash, is because it seems like every other day there's something like, hey, like while this person's life is
Destroyed,
it's spiraling towards tragedy, it seems like DC and Warner Brothers is heading to somewhere where they may get acquired again, because after that earnings call, Warner Brothers Discovery, their stock tanked. Obviously, that's a short-term thing, but with the way media consolidation is going to happen, it wouldn't be surprising if these assets are sold again in the next few years. So it's just exhausting as a fan, I shouldn't have to really like be listening to an earnings call to find out, what's going on with my favorite characters. But
you're a finance bro.
That's
now,
where
man.
we are. Yeah, I'm a finance bro, Wall Street Bets podcast.
Hey,
That's
man.
what this is. It's just exhausting.
Yeah,
it's exhausting. It's a headache. Not that I was really particularly excited about it. I just wanted to see something. And now that we're on the other side of it, it makes so much sense that San Diego presentation was so lackluster, because it seems like, and granted, it's bad, because it's a bad look to cancel a movie that's basically finished, but from a business, like from a brand standpoint, it would make sense for them to be like, hey, let's just get to the Flash. And as soon as the Flash comes out, we forget it all. We don't cancel things that are in production, but we just start over. And, right now they're looking for their Kevin Feige. If it was that simple, every company would have a Kevin Feige, but let's see where it goes.
Yeah. I mean, after all these earning calls and like reading all these like New York Times articles and just finance articles, I totally get why they were like, yeah, Wolf of Wall Street, we got to do a whole bunch of drugs to like keep this machine going, because it's just like a lot and it just doesn't stop. I do think it's a little BS that they canceled Batgirl, because it was so far into production. Like it could have been one of those things that they just released like on the side and been like, hey, by the way, this is something that we were working on. Just want to let you know, it's not really like, it could just be an HBO Max exclusive and be like, hey, this doesn't apply to our long-term strategy. Freaking Snyder Cut, different situation, but you can pull another Snyder Cut and just gain all those subscribers. Like HBO Max beat out Netflix, and you can continue to beat them out with like this very little content. Like hundreds of millions of people will be like, yeah, I want to watch the new Batgirl, but it's only on HBO Max, and they'll subscribe.
Yeah, listen, I do think the filmmakers deserve to have their film watched. That's a huge waste of time. A big opportunity lost on all of them. But just as someone that was seeing the updates of it and stuff like that, the movie was confusing as fuck, and they didn't even because you have a Batgirl, someone that hasn't been introduced yet into any DCEU content really. Then her dad is Jim Gordon, but it's the Jim Gordon from the Snyderverse, which is supposed to be dead. And then
Ooh.
the Batman, J.K. Simmons, who's great, but then the Batman is Michael Keaton. So you're like, wait, how does someone become Batgirl in a world with Michael Keaton's Batman, but the Commissioner Gordon is J.K. Simmons? As like DC was using the multiverse as an excuse, not a plan. Whereas Marvel has used the multiverse as a plan, be like, hey, like this is how
Yeah.
we can introduce new ideas. This is how we could play around with things. This is how we can expand. Whereas with DC, it's just like, hey, we have a multiverse, so this doesn't have to make sense. So at least with the fire sale, the hey, we're letting everything go kind of approach, that does seem like a plan. Do we love the plan? No, but it seems like a plan. So the
Yeah.
Flash is ending shortly before the new movie comes out. I'd imagine Superman and Lois is going to be canceled just because one of the brands they highlighted in their presentation was Superman. So
True.
the trinity of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman obviously are on top of mind. And it really spoke to DC as a brand. And, hopefully that means let's hire really competent people, invest in it, and hopefully nurture it so that, not just the movies are great, but, the games, the comics, all of it.
I mean, the comics haven't ever been bad to me, but
Yeah.
I think you put up a good point earlier, like, quality over quantity. And I think with the new ownership, they have a different filter of what quality is, obviously. And hopefully that's a good thing going forward. That made me think of something though. Gal Gadot is like contracted for a third Wonder Woman. Are they going to say, hey, let's reboot Wonder Woman and you can take a payout, or we're going to do the third Wonder Woman and it's going to be a part of some other part of the multiverse or the Snyderverse, and then we'll tie it back in somehow to our like new universe we're making, or like what's going to happen with Gal Gadot?
I don't know. In terms of Wonder Woman 3, I really feel they announced Wonder Woman 3 as more of like, to save face because Wonder Woman, 1984 did not do great theatrically. So I think they as a company, they announced that sequel like the opening weekend of that movie. And I
Oh my
really
gosh.
believe it was to say, hey, we did it. We released it. It's a success, and it was the first big movie. A part of that, Jason Pillar, who's the head of Warner Media, that was the first big movie that premiered on HBO Max, day and date theatrical. And I think they really wanted to say, hey, this was a success. And the way we show that is we treat our stars right, we pay them out, you put them on a press tour to say how much they love this strategy. And who knows? I don't know, because James Gunn has said Peacemaker is safe, which is great. Love that show. I wonder if we are going back to the place of Warner Brothers has always had, hey, this part works, so we're gonna keep it, and then this part doesn't work so much. They just need a reboot. And this is not a lot of people have talked about this, but in the earnings call when they were asking about any other possible cancellations and what he talking about Black Adam and the Flash, Zaslav was talking about how much he loved those movies and how in his mind he could make them better. And to me, what I saw that as is like, hey, they're probably going to add some reshoots to the Flash to kind of like one address Ezra Miller, and then two, maybe just kill it all. Something that happened in Aquaman, they had Ben Affleck come back because test screenings they saw Michael Keaton and they're like, this makes no fucking sense because the Flash hasn't come out yet. So
Hmm.
I think a huge waste of Michael Keaton's time because he's now probably shot 3 movies as Batman and maybe only one of them is going to come out.
Yeah, I mean, that guy better be getting paid, and for
Oh, he got
sure.
paid. That's why he did it. That's why he came back. I
Yeah,
mean, I don't think he was really interested in coming back until they're like, hey, we have a big truck full of money.
yeah. But what about Blue Beetle, man? Like that's like finished, right? Like what's going on with that? We canceling that too?
Who knows? I don't think so because from the discussions, I think it's people have said that the tax write-off opportunity is really a once in a kind of like once a merger kind of thing where Blue Beetle kind of is lucky that it kind of falls outside of that.
Because it's not like it's pretty much finished. Like, well, Batgirl's only like 60,
And
70%.
also the way they're able to address it as a tax write-off, because they're being that Batgirl is an HBO Max original, they can say, hey, we're not really focusing on these HBO Max originals anymore. That was a strategy of the previous regime. Whereas
That's
Blue
true.
Beetle, they originally was going to be an HBO Max movie, but then they upgraded it to a theatrical release. So I think
Mm.
that saved it. But also the Batgirl cancellation is unprecedented. And so, as much as we're saying, hey, it doesn't really make much sense to cancel two of these movies, it didn't make much sense to cancel one of them. So, who knows? Prayers up to Jaime. It's something we want to see, hopefully.
Hopefully, if anything, they just do a couple of reshoots here and there and patch it together to where it can be a part of the bigger DCEU going forward. But we just got to kind of wait, see what happens. Things are crazy right now. Like, but you just never know what's going to happen. So keep your ear to the news to find out
The
what's going
life of the life of a DC fan.
Yo,
Like you're just looking at your phone, like waiting for it all to like blow up.
yeah, every Twitter notification I get, I'm like, is this the one? What's happening? But yeah, keep close to Twitter, keep close to the podcast. We'll be talking, of course, about DC as we're big DC fans, but we'll be having other great episodes around She-Hulk, some other interviews coming up that you can listen to. And until next time, bada boom.
Bada boom.